I'm Fiammetta Rocco, the books editor at The Economist. Every year, nearly 250,000 books are published in English. A few hundred of them end up in this office every week. When it comes to the year's end, we ask our reviewers to choose 50 of the very best. We can't talk about them all, but here is a selection of those that really stood out in 2013.
The book is called Music in the Castle of Heaven. It's by John Eliot Gardiner, and it's a portrait of Johann Sebastian Bach. John Eliot Gardiner is well placed to write about Bach. He turned 70 this year. He's had a lifetime relationship with Bach as a conductor and as a performer. It's not really so much about Bach's life, although it covers that as well. We don't know very much about Bach, but we do have most of his music preserved. And the great merit of the book is that Gardiner examines the man through his music and throws new life on the work of Bach.
Stephen King, the global economist of HSBC, has written an excellent book in When the Money Runs Out, An End to Western Affluence. He tackles the problem that Larry Summers recently referred to as secular stagnation, that Western growth rates appear to have slowed. Mr. King doesn't offer any particularly bright or radical solutions to the problem. We're going to struggle to deal with the growth, but he does bring up the fundamental issue that probably faces all Western democracies. Populations have got used to the theory that they are entitled to social benefits, and those social benefits are quite expensive, and that economic growth will be strong enough to pay for them. Over the next 10 to 20 years, they may find out that's not true after all.
The first volume of Charles Moore's authorised biography of Margaret Thatcher was certainly one of the most eagerly awaited volumes of British political history there ever has been, and it has not disappointed. Mr. Moore had remarkable access to Lady Thatcher's papers, to her confidants, to her family members, and he has used that to remarkable effect. He provides, notwithstanding his own Tory allegiances, a remarkably clear-eyed view of his subject, which I don't think radically transforms our view of her and her legacy, but has certainly provided a great deal of astonishingly interesting detail and has perhaps surprised us in a few ways too.
There have been literally scores of new books coming out to mark the anniversary of the war, 1914, but this is very much a combat history. It is a narrative of the major campaigns of the war from 1914 until the end in 1918. It is called The Great War, A Combat History by Peter Hart. I think what stands out is that he is a really first-rate military historian. I think what he clearly shows is that under the circumstances of the time, the people who were involved in this terrible struggle were doing the best that they could, and when the tactics and the technology evolved towards the end of the war, that was when the war of kind of immobility ended and a decisive result was achievable.
History, biography, current affairs. That's our meat and potatoes at The Economist. But we also make a point of writing about books that we really love, whether non-fiction or fiction. Now, 2 novels have really stood out this year. They're both very long and they're both fantastically good reads. The first is Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch, her first novel in a decade, but really worth the wait. And the second is The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton, a huge romp of a read set in the goldfields of 19th century New Zealand. It's the longest book to have won the Man Booker Prize for fiction, and it's by the youngest author. Happy reading.
The Economist.